Stan Lee is someone I'm sure all of you are familiar with. He's very known for his humble personality, his very nice interactions with his fans, and being always mentioned in a good light by everyone who's around him and everyone who's met him. Unfortunately, he has been the subject of elder exploitation. Don't get your forks up when I say this. Don't chase me out of town. I know it's a bit controversial, but I think elder exploitation is not something good. It's not something that should be happening. It's something that should be very punishable, and I couldn't imagine someone close to me being old and unable to do anything for themselves, having to go through this. So luckily, our hero and savior, one of his closest friends, from his own words, Mr. John Bolsack, or whatever he's called, is here to save the day and shed some light on this by making a documentary with footage he'd already had for the past 6 years, apparently. And I'm sure this would shed a lot of light on what had happened back then and how he was exploited. But to me, this does not seem like the very nice act that John is making it out to be. But my personal opinion aside, I'd like you to hear his own words first, and then we'll talk about it.
My name is John Bolerjack, and for the last 4 years of Stan Lee's life, I was his assistant, his confidant, but most importantly, his friend. I traveled the world with him, witnessing firsthand the incredible highs of his legendary career, but also the heartbreaking lows. Stan spent his final years enduring mistreatment, manipulation, and betrayal at the hands of a few very bad actors.
I knew some of it, but like most people, I didn't know all of it. And there were pieces of it that blew me away.
Seeing Stan in that situation, being taken advantage of, was really hard to watch. Because I just think, I was thinking of my parents and my grandparents. This film shows behind the curtain that not a lot of us fans get to see.
This isn't just a fluff piece trying to attack somebody. This is like, I'll just show you in their own words.
Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Andrew. I'm a comic book writer, and I was very infatuated by Mr. Stan Lee. And Mr. John Bolerjack here is trying to get revenge on Mr. Stan Lee. So please give him that $300,000 he's asking for. And be sure to give him even more than that, because he obviously needs it. And buy his signed from him. I can't remember. Obviously, I'm not trying to make fun of anyone who's appearing in these videos. I'm sure all of them are trying to do good. All of them are trying to get justice for Mr. Stan Lee. And I would like that too. I'm sure everyone would. However, I have to ask, if you had this footage for over 6 years now, why would you be sitting on it? Why wouldn't you give it out to journalists and make people aware of what was happening? I know it could be like some legal trouble if he had posted it himself and said, hey, look, this is what they're doing. But he could have given it to some journalists, some like media authorities even. And it would have done a difference. It would have made a pretty big difference, I think. There was an investigation going on how Stan Lee was exploited in his older days, in his older years. Yet there was no word from this guy. He shows up 6 years after all of that had happened, asks for $300,000 for footage he already has, which I'm sure he doesn't need that much for. If he actually wanted to shed light on this, he wouldn't be doing it in this way. This feels very exploitative. This feels very bad. And not only that, back when Stan Lee was being exploited, he says he was his friend, yet he was obviously, since he was able to film it and was able to see it all, he was profiting off of it too. He was seeing what was happening and was actively participating in exploiting Stan Lee. And I know he's gonna say like something. I knew he was being exploited. That's why I stayed. That's because I wanted to shed light and I wanted to save and I wanted to record. Well, if you wanted that, why didn't you do it first? Why did you have to wait for this long? And why did you have to work with him for years, watching all of that happen, yet doing absolutely nothing and showing to absolutely no one what you had? It just doesn't compute for me. It doesn't make sense. Now, this guy has a bunch of rewards on his Kickstarter for this, and the first one you can see when you try to buy is going to be like a bunch of postcards, and this drives it even further, my point, that he's trying to exploit this, because when you read it, it says it's a stunning photo comic capturing rare moments of Stan Lee and whatever. Every book comes signed by Mr. Shitbag, making it a must-have for true fans of Stan Lee and his legacy. And this is what I don't understand. I'm pretty sure they used similar wording in the post they made about the NFT, that if you wanted to support his legacy, the first thing you got to do is buy this NFT. It's a tribute to Stan Lee and whatever. And this reads the exact same way. It's a book that's been written by Mr. John Quarterback. It has nothing to do with Stan Lee. He didn't sign off on it. He didn't say that it was okay or he wanted it to be okay or he wanted it to be as his legacy. So why is it sold as something that it's a must-have for true fans of Stan Lee? What does it have to do with him that it's this important for fans? And he has a bunch of other rewards, including this one meet and greet with him in Comic-Con for $2,000. And obviously travel and lodging are not included. So if you look up the price of badges on Comic-Con, you can see that it's actually, for all days, it's going to be 80 times 3, which is 240 plus 60. So that's $300. $1,700 are going towards having to meet this legendary Mr. John Cash Grab. It doesn't compute for me. It doesn't make sense. And this guy doesn't seem as nice as he tries to make himself out to be. But it could be just me. I'm not the most knowledgeable on this. I'm not really familiar with how this stuff works. So I could be wrong. I really hope I am. It just doesn't seem that way for me. Good night.